Now, there's a lot of stuff coming out about Mike Bloomberg, and we're going to get into some of it today, because Mike Bloomberg has been basically living in what is, I consider, a parallel universe in terms of this campaign. I don't think there's ever been, at least in my recollection, in modern era, and, you know, primaries are really modern era creatures, where you have a situation where a candidate has been in no debates, participates in none of the primaries or caucuses, the first four, waits till Super Tuesday to jump in, and then also, well, maybe Ross Perot was around there, but he was not in a primary, but also is polling like Michael Bloomberg is. And I think that if you could ever say that something was a bubble, this is a bubble, because he has been inflating his numbers by going on air and presenting himself like a commodity. I'm a Snickers bar, right? I mean, you just have the opportunity to go out and advertise all the attributes of a Snickers bar. There's peanuts, there's caramel, there's chocolate. Oh, that sounds good. What you don't have is someone else standing by going like, oh, and that's also, 300 calories and for 1/4 of the bar. And the caramel is made in a plant somewhere where it's completely tainted. I'm not talking about specifically about any type of brand of candy bar. It's just so I don't want to be. I don't know what I'm not maligning any candy. I'm saying generally, not Snickers. I'm saying Snickers. Let's call it a different bar or whatever it is.
Ironic analogy considering Bloomberg's crusade against sugar.
Indeed, but.
Candy should have debates.
Exactly. But the idea being that he's out there selling himself without any critique, without any pushback at this point, because A, he hasn't been in the debates, and B, nobody's taking him that seriously as of yet. However, as a public service to you, we're going to remind you why we have been mocking Michael Bloomberg here since his tenure as mayor in the later years. Here is Michael Bloomberg at, I don't know, the International Monetary Fund. Is that really what it is? Or did we just put that behind him because we wanted it to really make the point of how much of an oligarch he is? Here he is at, he's got a one-on-one with Lagarde, she's former, right? Head of, she's still ongoing head of the International Monetary Fund. And I happen to be in favor of the...
Sorry, I believe she's at the European Central Bank now.
Okay. I happen to be in favor of some of the policies that were instituted under the Bloomberg administration regarding taxation and food. For instance, trans fats were outlawed. Those are plastics that were literally, you would eat them. They were sort of edible plastics, I guess, in the same way that really anything you can digest and actually ingest, I should say, is edible. Those were outlawed. He raised the taxes on cigarettes to where it became prohibitive for most people to smoke. He raised the taxation on sugary drinks and capped, I think, the size of slushies. Now, these policies on some level are regressive. Until these products simply don't exist and people switch to other products. So where people go from sodas to water, let's say, or to juice, or to, tea. And until people stop smoking cigarettes, in which case it's not regressive anymore. But they are somewhat regressive policies. However, there's also a lot of externalities that the rest of us bear with things like drinks that are just sugar transport vehicles that create, epidemic of diabetes.
Oh, you're making Matt thirsty.
Yeah, I'm sure. And however, what is really telling about Mike Bloomberg just like he did with stop and frisk, and we will go through some of those quotes and numbers as well. He does not see this policy in that regard. He sees the little people as little people. He honestly talks about human beings as if he is a god. They are not even a different class of human being to him. They are literally a different species that he just oversees in some fashion.
Explain SimCity.
It really is. Here he is talking about those sugary drinks.
Some people say, well, taxes are regressive, but in this case, yes, they are. That's the good thing about them, because the problem is in people that don't have a lot of money. And so higher taxes should have a bigger impact on their behavior and how they deal with themselves. So I listen to people saying, oh, we don't want to tax the poor. Well, we want the poor to live longer so that they can get an education and enjoy life. And that's why you do want to do exactly what a lot of people say you don't want to do. The question is, do you want to pander to those people, or do you want to get them to live longer? And there's just no question. If you raise taxes on full sugary drinks, for example, they will drink less. And there's just no question that full sugar drinks are one of the major contributors to obesity, and obesity is one of the major contributors to heart disease and cancer and a variety of other things. So it's like saying, I don't want to stop using coal because coal miners will go out of work. Well, will lose their jobs. We have a lot of soldiers in the United States, in the U.S. Army, but we don't want to go start a war just to give them something to do. And that's exactly what you're saying when you say, well, let's keep coal killing people because we don't want coal miners to lose their jobs. The truth of the matter is there aren't very many coal miners left anyways.
All right, well, listen, he's getting a little bit off the topic. But first off, just going backwards to forward, in fact, I think we are highly incentivized to go to war because it just so happens that we do that all the time. I think for his buddies to make a lot of money in the military-industrial complex. But here's the point. He almost gets there with the coal miners. He almost gets there as to what is missing from his calculation. First off, the idea that we want them to live longer so they get a better education and enjoy life. I'm all for people being lifelong students. But the idea that at the end of their lives, you have a significant number of people going out and getting an education at that point doesn't make any sense. They could get an education in their 20s or in their teens.
No.
And this is the weird, creepy thing as he talks about this. When you look at the plans to get this country off of coal that are presented, they always involved something to the effect of, we need to retrain coal miners. We need to provide for them. The Green New Deal says we'll retrain you. And if you don't feel like you can be retrained and find another job at age 50 or some odd, then we'll pay you to not be coal miners. So it is a human-centric policy. If Mike Bloomberg had the same perspective and was genuinely concerned, I mean, look, I get that you say that it's a burden on the system to have this many people with diabetes. I think that's a perfectly legitimate thing to say. But if you genuinely had the concern that he pretends he has about wanting poor people to live longer lives, maybe not, as opposed to I need people to come and clean my offices.
So bring me my big gay ice cream.
Exactly.
Oh, thank you.
Then what he was in the position of doing is we're going to do a special type of nutritional enterprise zones where bodegas that have X amount of fresh fruit or fresh produce will get a tax abatement. I mean, they do tax abatements all the time. We're living in the middle of a massive tax abatement for property taxes around here. And I got news for you. I'm looking out the window. They don't need it. They're getting apartments. They're renting apartments for $5,000 for a studio apartment or something. And they're getting tax abatements. This happens. There's a lot of things that he could do
Maybe
could have
some
done.
well-funded community health clinics.
Health clinics, nutritional support. I mean, if that's what he's on with the sugary stuff.
I mean, the biggest predictor of life expectancy is someone's income. So maybe attack economic inequality.
There's a whole host of other things he could do.
Well, and not only did he not do those, Matt Karp did a great headshot where Bloomberg wrote a column a couple weeks ago saying part of basically I'm running to take on income inequality, and he did a double head, and the other one was OJ seeks out the real killer.
Right.
And I think the others, but it's really important because this reminds me of Macron in the sense that not only did Bloomberg not do all of these other things, or even just use his national leadership to talk about agriculture subsidies and protecting family farms or advocating for some form of universal health care, right? Like even if it's not going to be single payer, something that would have been constructive. What they do with these policies on climate and health, because they're so classist and punitive, is they undermine broader public support for things we really urgently need to tackle. And I think, Trump and Bloomberg is that's a classic choice because Trump will just say he's going to take away your guns, going to take away your soda, and he doesn't trust you to live your life. And it'll be an effective message.
Plus, I was heavily invested in Arizona iced tea.
Right.
Who knows?
I'm sure if you go through the portfolio,
wouldn't be hard to find.
Yeah.
Folks.